All right, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We are super happy to have you with us. My name is Jamie Rusi, and I am the treasurer for the FCC PTA. And tonight what we want to do is go over the new financial review requirements from Virginia PTA with you. The presentation in total maybe will take 15 minutes, and then we will spend the rest of the time, on Q&A, whatever you guys want to hear about, I am here for. So let's go ahead and get started. First, here are the summer taskers for treasurers. These are both outgoing and incoming. You guys kind of share responsibility. I know we have a little bit of both here today. So the first thing that outgoing treasurers are going to do, or treasurers who are still staying on to the next year, is you want to prepare your files for your financial review. Hopefully at this point, you guys have all done that. You're going to present those files to your committee, your financial review committee, whoever your bylaws says that is. Most PTAs either have a CPA perform their financial review, or they have a committee of 3. You're going to schedule a transition meeting with the new treasurer if you're outgoing and there's someone incoming. And then you're going to ensure that all of the dues that you owe Virginia and the county have been paid. So that's kind of in your June, July timeframe. Your July, August timeframe looks a lot bigger, right? So if you're a new treasurer, you're going to take over those financial records as soon as the financial review is done. You're going to make sure that any changes to the bank are complete. So adding people, taking people off, changing people around. You're going to make sure that your treasurer book is set up to suit your needs. Everybody kind of figures things out in a different way and needs a different set of stuff. And so as long as it's according to all of the things that you're supposed to have, you can set up your filing system how you like. You're going to also kind of go over your standing rules on reimbursements. Is that what you need it to be? Are there more things you want clarified? Are there things that actually came out in the financial review that you're like, look, this needs to be a standing rule. We need to have a form here. All of those kinds of things. Your next biggest thing that you guys have to do is the budget for the year, right? So kind of engaging your board. What types of projects are we going to have? What kind of fundraising is happening? And then you put that budget proposal together. Generally, local PTAs have a committee. Sometimes it's just the executive board, whatever it is. And then you need to kind of figure out what kind of cash do you have to have on hand for your start of year duties. Make sure your insurance premiums are paid. Make sure you file taxes and, attend any trainings that are needed at, like both Virginia PTA, the county PTA, we do trainings, or just kind of one-on-one on the job stuff with the outgoing treasurer. So those are your summer taskers. Tonight, we're going to really focus on what this financial review looks like. And it's a 2-part process. As the treasurer, you're going to gather all of your records. Make sure that you have everything that you need. And then the committee is going to look through those records and make sure everything that you say is there, and that all of the numbers match. This is super important. Please remember that your financial review committee is 3 people, and none of them can be anybody who are signatories or reconcilers on your account. Okay. All right. Your financial review should be complete before your treasurer begins the new year as well. Okay. Your treasurer must also, your treasurer records also have to be reviewed when a treasurer leaves office. So if somebody only kind of is around till December, when they leave, you have to do another financial review. So one of the questions in the financial review is, was there an interim report? And that's kind of what it's talking about. And I will also say, for those of you who are incoming presidents and incoming treasurers, this is a great way for you to get a handle on what are the rules for treasurers, because you're both responsible. And then kind of what is your financial situation in your PTA? This is a list of all of the documents treasurers need to have to hand over to the financial review committee. And I know it looks like a ton of stuff, but it's actually not that bad. The first thing is you need a copy of whatever the last financial review was. Any interim financial reviews, like I said, you'll need those as well. You're also going to want a transaction register with a running balance, which, somebody did ask me, like, what is that? So if you're using QuickBooks or MoneyMinder or something like that, Generally speaking, there's a report that you can run out of that will give you that transaction register. If you're not using that, it's literally just the book that you say, I had $100 and I subtracted $100. Now there's $0 left. All right. You're going to want to make sure that you have your checkbook with your unused checks. You don't necessarily have to hand that over to the committee, but they should be able to take a look at it if you want. All bank statements, and that is for both your checking and your savings if you have a savings account. And if you have anything like PayPal, those statements have to be included as well because it's a cash exchange. All deposit records, all cash, counting forms, any check request forms. That means like if somebody says, hey, I spent $5 and I need a reimbursement, or, you know, we bought mugs for Teacher Appreciation Week, I need you to pay the invoice. There should be a form that the treasurer gets that somebody fills out that says, I need you to pay this. Obviously, if your PTA has a debit card, you know, anytime that debit card is used, is there a sign off? Did somebody certify that the funds were available and in the right place? You'll want a copy of whatever the annual financial report is, any treasurer reports from PTA meetings that you've presented, all of the minutes from the executive board, because that will help people see where the board approved different expenditures. A copy of the final approved budget, as well as any amendments that were made throughout the year. And then obviously some of the more clerical items, your bylaws, your IRS filings, your insurance policy. If you have a Virginia sales tax exemption, that should be in the treasurer records, as well as your 501c3 determination letter. So really quickly, let's walk through the financial review. This is the piece, the top of page 2. This is what you as a treasurer are responsible for filling out. Super simple this year for you guys. It used to be on the long form that there were like 9 pages, that there was a treasurer response to almost all of the questions. Not so this year. All right. So the biggest thing you need to do is the name of the PTA, the city you're located in, and your EIN number. Then what you're going to do is sign and date that you've turned over these records. This way, you know that anything that happened after that, right, was not on you. Again, here's that list that I just showed you. And what the committee is going to go through is they're going to go through your notebook, whether it's on paper or electronic, and say, okay, yes, these things are had. Some of them are not applicable, and that's totally fine. You would just write not applicable. Here's a list of all the questions that the Financial Review Committee is asked. Does the amount shown on the first bank statement correspond with the ending balance from last year? Right? Very simple things. Did all the checks contain 2 signatures? That's a regulation. Were all the expenses recorded? So everything that's asked here should be a piece of your treasurer binder that they can kind of go through and say, yep, I see where that is, and then be able to say yes. If the answer is no, it's okay. The answer is no. So for instance, if you see, did the PTA purchase insurance? Perhaps your PTA did purchase it, but it's not in the treasurer's binder anywhere. So you could say it wasn't in the treasurer's binder, not sure if we have insurance. And then somebody would have to go back and check. And then you guys may make the recommendation, make sure that the treasurer has the insurance policy in their binder, things like that. This is actually the biggest piece of the financial review, and that's the money, right? So basically on this page, it asks the committee to take a look at all of the finances. And this is where your bank statements are really going to come in handy, because they're going to have to match your bank statements up with your deposits and your expenditures. All right. And so basically they want to know, are all the checks in order? If there aren't, are there checks that are missing? Why might they be missing? Right? You may say, hey, you know, we sent check X in the mail, but it never got there. We had to have it canceled and we issued check Y. And then what you would have in your treasurer binder for them is, you know, the memo from the bank saying, hey, this was canceled. They want you to look at your beginning balance as of July 1. So that's what's on your banking statement. Then they want you to tell them what your total receipts were. And then your total cash on hand becomes those 2 things together. Then you're going to subtract the expenses, and you're going to have your ending balance as of June 30th. On the next line, they're going to ask what the bank statement said your ending balance was on June 30th. And to be able to clear your books for the year, those two numbers need to match each other. You're also going to say, hey, we wrote these checks. They're still outstanding. They haven't been cashed. Or, hey, we made these deposits. They haven't shown up yet. And then your ending balance is the final thing on the line that they want to see, right? And that should match, right? It should be, if we had outstanding checks, if we had outstanding deposits, it should be subtracted and come out even. Then there's this page, super simple, right? We have reviewed the books and we find them to be correct. Check. Sorry, guys. We reviewed the books and we have issues. Check. And then the box below is really a space for your financial review committee to articulate what the issues may have been that they found. And I always find that it's really helpful that if they found issues, if they have recommendations on how you guys may remediate those, to write those in that box. Now, this is a very small box this year, so hopefully nobody needs very much. But if you do, you could always say, see attached memo from financial review committee, and the financial review committee can make their recommendations on, paper and attach it. And then the 3 people from the committee, or if there's just a CPA, sign off that they've completed this. Once that happens, there has to be a presentation of the financial review to your executive board. That generally happens in August because most PTAs are starting to meet in August. There's an acceptance by the incoming president and treasurer, which they sign off on this form. It's right down here. They sign on this bottom line. Yep, we got it. They presented it. We understand it. Once this is completed, you guys can start spending again. So if your budget has a summer spending line item or anything like that, you can go ahead and resume PTA activities. You also need to upload it into Member Hub under the compliance documents. And then at your first general membership of the year, you present it to your general membership. That is it. That is the long and the short of the entire process. So with that, I see that there may be some questions in the chat that we'll get to. If you guys have any questions, I would just ask that you raise your hand so Kara and I can make sure that we get to everybody. But I am happy to start asking any questions that you guys may have.
Yeah, there's a few in the chat. If I can go through those with you.
Perfect. Let's go.
First one, will these slides be sent out?
They will, because we're amazing.
Yes. Okay. Member Hub says that the financial reviews are due tomorrow, and I'm only just about to hand off the books to the committee. Did the process get sped up? Yes. And I said, yes, we'll talk about it. And there's real dates, and then there's real dates. So if you want to talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, I have to tell you. So I was going through and doing something else in Member Hub, and I actually just noticed the date myself at the beginning of the week. So it did get moved up. I don't think that, anyone would be shocked if you didn't hit the date. What I would say is that since books close on June 30, if you had your financial review paperwork ready to go out to your financial review committee somewhere between the 10th and the 15th, and that the financial review was completed and given to your board by July 31st, I think that that's reasonable, given that this is the first year we're using this new form, which, yes, it's super simple, but you know what? I can admit most of us missed the boat on this due date. I know I did. And so I think that, it's reasonable for this to be a little bit delayed. And if anybody asks, you can tell them I said so. That was my recommendation, and I'll take the heat, I swear.
And one of the things that I've heard directly from Virginia PTA was this is really a best practice. This is a new thing that they're introducing and saying, hey guys, instead of waiting to the last possible minute to really give your PTA an opportunity to be kind of mindful of time management, we recommend, this deadline. That being said, the absolute cutoff hard deadline for compliance purposes is not until I think October 15th.
That's right.
So get it done this summer, get it done before your first meeting, and you guys should be fine. Scott, I do see your hand is raised. I'm going to get to you in a few minutes. We're going to get through some of these other questions first, and then we'll get you.
One thing that I did want to add to that is just remember, the earlier you finish your financial review, the sooner you can start spending. So really, you'll probably, like, most PTAs have some kind of welcome back thing that they're going to do. So generally, if you're done before then, so you can make whatever purchases you need for that, that's really where your bread and butter is.
Are there any penalties if anything was missed? For example, I discovered we missed a cash count during book fair for one day.
So when we talk penalties, there's not a penalty per se. Like, nobody from Virginia PTA is going to come down and say, you missed a cash count, so we're pulling whatever you got and you're no longer a PTA. It's not like that. What they're looking for is a recognition that you missed the cash count, and what is it that you guys as a PTA are going to do moving forward to assure it doesn't happen again, right? Because then what they may look for on your next submission is to make sure that there were no missed cash counts, right? Or that you put some kind of thing in place to make sure that that doesn't happen again. And really what they're looking for is, hey, we missed a cash count. We picked it up at some other point in time. You know, they're not looking to come down on you like a hammer. What they really want you to do is assess yourself and say, hey, we may have missed a policy or practice here. We may have done something that was, you know, a one-off, but this is how we plan to fix it in the future.
Okay, we're going to get to those hands in just a minute. I'm going to go through a couple more from the chat. Can documents be a mix of digital and print? We did a lot of digital stuff this year.
I think it's going to be super hard to have a mix, but you know, it's up to whatever is easiest between you and your committee. I will say the first year I had everything in paper. The second year, everything was electronic because that was just easier for me to hand it off. So it's really kind of up to you, as long as you can articulate to your committee where it is. Like, here are the documents that are on paper. Here are the documents that are electronic. Here's where you can find them. I think it should be fine, but it's really, there's no hard and fast rule on this stuff. As long as it's in a place that, you know, is reachable and reviewable.
So Jamie, I did not know the answer for the next two questions.
Uh-oh.
Can treasurers, no, but I know you do. Can treasurers request the Virginia tax exempt form?
Yes.
Okay. That was
Yes,
easy.
Now, I will tell you, it is an arduous, difficult process. But local PTAs can request that form, but they have to request it themselves. There's no like umbrella, like 501c3, we have an umbrella under the APTA. If you guys as a local PTA would like Virginia tax exemption, you have to go to the Virginia Business Department. You have to apply for that yourself. So there's a whole slew of things that you have to do, but you can absolutely do it.
All right, I'm going to do one more from the chat, then we'll do the hands, and then we'll go back to the chat. If we have multiple accounts, do we do this financial review for each account or just in total?
Oh, so you marry the accounts for the financial review and you do one. So let's say you have a checking account and a savings account, or checking account 1, checking account 2, however you guys are doing it. You need to make sure that you have all of the paperwork for each account. So every bank statement. So if you have 3 accounts, you have every bank statement for each of those accounts saved in a folder or a file for the financial review committee. Any checks that may have been written out of one and then the other and then maybe another, you have to make sure that your financial review committee clearly knows these are the checks written out of 1, these are the checks written out of 2, these are the checks written out of 3, however it goes. If you have one checking account, one savings account, and you're transferring money between, or even harder still, when you have a PayPal account and you're transferring money into a checking account, you're just going to want to make sure that there is a paper trail for that transfer. So a great example on that would be, I have a savings account. I have to put money into my checking account to cover XYZ invoices. The piece that would go into that documentation would be the printout from bank 1 that says you requested the transfer, the printout from bank 2 that says the transfer was received, and then a copy of any invoices that would go with that transfer to cover those bills. And that's what you would have.
All right, Jamie, we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 5 hands raised. We'll do those and then we'll come back to the chat. I know there's still a lot in the chat, but I'm trying to kind of balance. So Scott, the floor is yours.
Hello. I'm actually going to turn on my camera if that's okay.
Sounds good.
I love seeing people. I can't figure out where the video. There it is. All right. So hello everyone. You're up here. So I'm gonna ask this question, and it's like a 12-part question. I'm a new treasurer, and my first question I have is: you mentioned this committee. How do we get these people for the committee to do the review?
Good question. So you, sir, as a new treasurer, would chair that committee. That is the most natural way to go about it because you didn't sign off on any checks. So generally speaking.
Well, I did. So when I say new, I'm new this year. Sorry about that.
Okay, then not you. So generally speaking, it's outlined or delineated for you in standing rules. If it isn't, I encourage you guys to put it in standing rules. But generally, the outgoing board will appoint a financial review committee. And they can do like a call for volunteers. Hey, we need a financial review committee. Who would like to volunteer? Generally, no one will volunteer. And so then you'll kind of have to say, hey, Annie, could you please do me a favor and sit on the financial review committee? And that generally gets a little bit more play. If you're still desperate and you still don't have it, we could orchestrate a swap. So for instance, if school A doesn't have a committee and school B doesn't have a committee, what you would do is you would take your officer board and you would swap financial reviews and you would do each other's, and FCCPTA has and will organize that for you if that's necessary. Your final stitch effort, and you know, only because I'm selfish sometimes, I can do it with you, right? And FCCPTA can sit that committee with you and help you. Okay. So those are the options.
All right. I don't want to take up too much time. My next question is you mentioned a binder and handing it to the committee. I have several binders, expenses. I have the bank statements, and I have a lot of digital information. As the treasurer, are we to walk them through this? They'll ask for, say, all the invoices or receipts to the reimbursement forms. Do we walk them through this, or do we just hand it to them and just let them figure it out?
Hand it over, right? Because what you don't want to do is seem like you're imparting them to sway anyway.
Okay.
But what I would say is make yourself available to the chair so that if they have questions, you're available to answer them at their need.
Okay, that works. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Jeff.
Hello, Jeff Gossett from Deer Park. Question I have is about the fiscal year. When I took this over last year, we had different dates that didn't seem to follow what I had heard. And when I set up MoneyMinder, because I'm not a CPA, and after Virginia PTA did the training and they really pushed MoneyMinder, I love it. But as part of my setup, I had to verify the tax ID, and it replied back that it found Deer Park Elementary's PTA and that my fiscal year was August 1st to July 31st. So that is how we set up our, I see the faces. So that's how I set up my fiscal year, which was different than it was before, which ran to the end of August. I won't get into that. So my question is, I saw the forms from Virginia PTA, which clearly says July 1 to June 30th. So it's too late to go back in time. How do I fix this, or what do I just need to move forward with this?
So I also use MoneyMinder, and my faces were more like, ooh, how do I do that in MoneyMinder? Because I forget. So I'm not particularly sure where in the piece of software you can go change it, but I know that you can. What I would do is give them a phone call and just say, hey, look, we had to change our financial year. It's now this. I can't get it to change in the system. Can you please help me and see what they say? Like, see if they'll give you a ticketing, like some kind of help desk ticket or something like that.
Okay.
That's the way I would probably deal with it. If they come back and say to you, we pull this information from, VA PTA, I'm not sure where they would pull the information from, but if that is the case, what we may need to do is help you guys talk to the IRS about the change in your fiscal year, because
Okay.
that may be where the information is pulling from. I would start with MoneyMinder and see if we can get the easy fix.
Okay.
But if not, we may have to kind of engage the IRS to make sure that your correct fiscal year is reflected, because the other piece of that is that will impact when you have to file taxes, and what you don't want is a late charge on filing taxes and things like
Right. And obviously, as you can imagine, since we started our fiscal year August 1st, the July 1st of last year was submitted in the previous transaction list. So the 2020, 2021 was already submitted because we updated our fiscal year. So I'll research it on my end. But
well, for the purpose of this financial review, I would just include the last year's in your paperwork and say that this one is starting as of August 1st due to the change
Okay.
in the fiscal year. That should cover you, because you
Okay.
actually did do a financial review on July.
Yes.
It was just
Yeah, we
repeated
did.
before. Yeah,
okay.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
of course.
And some of these issues that we're discussing that are more long-term that we can't just snap a finger and fix, this is part of Jamie's job. You guys can reach out to Jamie as the Fairfax County Council PTA Treasurer at any point during the year to get ongoing assistance. Okay, Kimberly, you're up.
Hi, I'm Kimberly Hatz. I'm the treasurer at Langston Hughes Middle School in Reston. And I was the one that asked the question about requesting the tax exempt. And I wanted to follow up because what I was looking for was like looking in the past. I came on as treasurer when we were going through COVID and virtual schooling. So we didn't have a lot going on. And then last year was like my first year. But what I inherited was a letter from Virginia PTA saying, yes, your 501 status is good through this year, but it was, the actual documentation or the 501c3 documentation was from like 2008. And then when I went last year to find that letter again, so that it would show that we were current, it said the president had to request it. So that's where my question came from. So I was trying to figure out, how do I get that letter that, says that our 501(c)(3) status is still good and continuing?
Okay, so that's an email to liaison@vapta.org. And you're going to want to talk with somebody named Deborah and just explain the situation to her, and she should be able to send you a copy.
Okay, can you give me that email again? I'm
Sure,
sorry.
it's liaison@vapta.org.
Okay, and then I had one more question about the cash counts. And just making sure that I understood this, because I did create something whenever we had a cash box. And basically it was like the cash in, and then at night or after the event, they would do a count out of how much money we took over the period of the night. And I just want to make sure that was the right way to do it, to keep those forms all together. And then that should be part of our financial review.
Yes, and you should always have two people count that cash.
Yeah,
So as
no,
long
I
as-
always
yep.
did that. Yeah,
Yep.
no, I always had two people counting it. I just never kind of saw like information about it. And I just wanted to make sure, and it didn't look like it was part of our previous normal year book. So I was kind of winging it.
So you're asking really like, what's the backup documentation? So it will be that piece of paper that you have that, here's what the count is, and then the deposit slip for the cash should be
Okay.
attached to that.
Okay, all right, perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, we're going to do two more hands and then we'll go back to chat. George, you are up next.
Hey, I just want to chime in on the tax exempt letter. It took me like 4 or 5 months to get it. I'm the outgoing treasurer, and basically I set up the account on the VA tax website to go to our treasurer's account. So the new treasurer coming in will be able to just roll in and be able to manage that for future years. but you do have to submit a lot of the financial records, like the records. So if you're thinking of trying to get that tax exempt letter, do it in a month or two, like after you have your financial review done, because then all your documentation's set and it's fresh in your mind. It'll be fresh for the VA tax department to review, because it does take like I think a
Forever.
minimum of 90 days to get the letter.
Yeah.
So
it's not a process for wimps, for sure.
I guess one other thing is, like, it's kind of confusing when you get the 501c3 determination, because that's not the tax exempt letter. And it says in the body of the letter you can go get it, but it's kind of confusing for new treasurers to understand that it's a separate process completely.
It is separate and it's individual to the PTA. It has nothing to do with Virginia PTA. And I think that's kind of where some of that confusion comes in, because they clear you to go get it, but they're not the umbrella organization for you to receive it. It's just individual to you guys.
Thanks, George. Hartmus.
Hi, I'm the treasurer at Mosaic Elementary School, and I have 2 questions. One, where do I find the financial review form to hand off to the committee?
It is on Virginia PTA's website, but what we can do is, Kara, if we can, I can send it over to Kara and she can send it out with all the materials from tonight so you guys get it.
Okay,
Yes, I can do that.
thank you. And the other thing I was going to ask is this year, at the end of our fiscal year, there was one check that's outstanding. Like they just cashed it in July. So in my notebook, all the documentation for that check request, do I include it in this year's and make a note that it's outstanding? But then when I start the new binder, do I just transfer it into that or just make a copy? Like, does it need to be present in both or in the year that it's cashed?
It doesn't have to be present in both. There's a piece on your financial review that will ask for outstanding checks and it gets listed there.
So
This
I fill
way,
that out or the review committee fills
the
that out?
review committee fills it out, but I mean, okay, so I'm going to tell you, I do my own financial review because I want to know everything first, right? Like, I don't want anybody else finding something that's going to surprise me. I just don't like it. So I do my own and I kind of go through and I write the numbers down and I check it. And when there is something that seems off, what I'll do is when I hand the stuff over, I'll say, hey, don't forget to note that there is an outstanding check. Right? So that they kind of know to go back and look for that and not miss it. So you can kind of do things like that, like say, okay, so here are some treasurer notes. Like, yes, I don't have all of the meeting minutes and I'll do better next year, but don't waste your time looking for them because I'm telling you they're not all there, or something like that, right? Or, hey, there was a deposit, I made it on 6/30, you'll see the receipt, but it didn't hit the bank account till 7/1, so it's, it's outstanding. You can feel free as a treasurer to kind of point them in whichever directions you want, or to kind of say, hey, don't forget, this is outstanding, or, this happened, or what have you, so that they have some understanding of what was going on through the year that might have caused, whatever it is that they're missing or what have you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, we will, Nick, and then we'll do the chat. So Nick, you're up.
Great, thank you. I'm the continuing treasurer for Bailey's Elementary School. And I tried to turn my video. Oh, there we are. I'm at the pool, sorry.
Nice. Love it.
My question had to do, oh my gosh, I totally blanked. You know what? I'll follow up with chat because I think I lost it and
It was
it's
the
late.
pool. It was too exciting. The pool was
That's
too
exactly
exciting.
right. Well, I had about 8 kids asking me questions, even that my earbuds are not conspicuous enough. So I'll thank you. I apologize.
No
I'll
worries.
send you an email or chat.
Perfect.
Thanks, Nick. Okay, chat. Can I perform the audit as a CPA before I take on the new duties as a treasurer? I'm the new treasurer in the upcoming school year.
You can do it not as a CPA. You can just do it because you're the new treasurer. As long as you didn't sign any checks on the account, or you were not on the banking account, you can do it all day, every day. So any newly incoming treasurers, this is a great way for you to kind of step in and see what's going on in the PTA. It helps a lot, kind of on the job training, for lack of a better term, seeing, okay, like this is all the stuff I need to have, right? And how am I going to set this up so it makes sense in my head, right? So this is a perfect time for you to take that over. So yes, absolutely.
But they should do it with 2 others as a committee, or they can do
Yes.
it by themselves.
So if you are a CPA and an auditor, you could do it by yourself. If you have a new incoming board, though, I would really encourage you to engage at least the president if they are new and haven't signed off, because this is a really good learning moment for them too.
Okay. All right. Big question here. I have gotten 4 volunteers to help with the review. However, only one of them was a paid member of our PTA. I know, sorry, my chat got small. I know membership is supposed to be part of it. Can I still use these volunteers? I'm desperate.
Yes, you can. It says that it's a committee of 3. It does not say that they have to be members. So, yep.
All right. What if we completed the audit but forgot to present it to the general membership and upload it to MemberHub?
I'm assuming it's for last year. So you know what? Hey, we forgot to do these steps. What we did is we made sure that we put it on our task list for the new treasurer. We won't let it happen again. And oh, by the way, we've emailed it to our general membership so that they can review it. And we've also uploaded it into MemberHub. So we fixed it. You know, the bottom line on this one is like, you're human, right? And everybody understands that you're volunteers and you're human, right? We miss things. The past couple of years were a little crazy, right? And so it is not going to shock anybody that, you know, it got missed or it got forgotten, or hey, maybe you just didn't know you had to do that. And that's totally fine too. As long as what you do is you're saying, hey, we acknowledged it happened, we fixed it, here's how it's not going to happen in the future.
Okay. Is there a penalty for turning in our financial review late?
I mean, you will get lots of emails from me saying that it's late. But no, there's no penalty. What it basically will mean is that you're out of compliance. And if you're out of compliance for too long, it will impact your students' ability to partake in other types of activities from the PTA. So let's say you're a PTA who has not completed their compliance documents. You know, what you may find is you can't participate in reflections, or if there are scholarships, your students aren't eligible. So things like that. So nobody's going to come down like a ton of bricks on you or anything like that. You'll get lots of emails encouraging you to do X, Y, or Z, or reminding you to do it. But the biggest penalty on being out of compliance is really that your kids won't be able to participate in bigger statewide programs. That said, once you're out of compliance for a couple of years, especially on the IRS side, you no longer will be seen as a PTA, and you're going to have to do all of the work to get yourself back into 501c3 status and take it from a local PTA president who did it. It was a 128-page document and it took months, right? So again, not a fun process. So you want to make sure that you are filing your taxes, you're doing your financial reviews, and you're doing those regularly. And if you kind of miss a deadline here or there, that you correct it as soon as you can.
Okay, Virginia PTA's training in June showed the end of July is the due date, which is why I was surprised to see July 15th. I'm going to agree with that. Yes, yeah. Virginia PTA did say end of July. And the surprise, it's different. But if you miss the July 15th day deadline, as we mentioned a few times, it's not a big, there's no penalties that are going to happen right now. Virginia PTA doesn't even start to check for compliance until October. So, I mean, obviously you want to get things done before then, but we do have leeway built in. We know that we're coming off a rough couple of years. PTAs are still putting together their teams. You know, not everybody had successful elections. Not every PTA has a treasurer or a president, so they can't even start to do these things. These are just guidelines and best practices, and there's something to shoot for, but I know I can speak for my PTA. We're not on time for tomorrow. And it's also, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it either. All right, let's see. Okay. Okay. Well, this is an interesting. So Virginia PTA wants us to upload our completed financial review, but then they want us to upload it again once our membership approves it. So this question is for us, general membership meeting does not happen until late September or early October. So the audit will not be approved by the general membership until at least September or October. Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay. We have another question about the new financial review form. We will make sure that you guys, it's on the Virginia PTA's website, but we'll make sure as part of a follow-up to this training that we send you the link to that. Okay. Let's see. Oh, somebody else put a link to the chat. That's great. Okay, we have 2 sets of books, one for all night grad party and one for general. Do we need to do 2 separate reviews?
Oh, all night grad party is just the bane of treasurer's existence everywhere. So it really depends how you guys work all night grad party. If you're the kind of PTA who, you know, you sign the contracts, the money goes into your account, you know, you're on top of it, it's all yours, but you have this committee who does it, then you can do it as one. If you have a whole separate account, separate everything, and really all you are is like some umbrella so that they can get tax exempt status, you're going to have to figure out how to do that. And I would almost say do a separate financial review. This way you as the PTA is the checks and balances on that. That's how I would do it. You can certainly, you know, kludge it and do one. You know, it really depends just on how like how that functionality is. What I would recommend though, is if it isn't really in your standing rules about like how that control happens, I would make sure it's in there, because I have seen all night grad parties that are amazing and they work really well together with PTAs. And I have seen them that go high and right so fast that it's just like, you know, we're kind of in there being like, okay, what happened here? So, you know, it really depends on what your relationship is with that program and kind of how it works. But I would definitely recommend getting some standing rules on how it is that you're going to make that function. And then that'll better dictate how you can do the financial review at the end of the year.
Previous treasurers in my PTA have always had only paper records. I started this year with having digital records, but also maintained paper records to have in a binder that got stored in the PTA closet for records. My question, is it necessary to keep the paper trail for future years? Is it okay to keep only digital records in Google Drive that is owned by a PTA and that can be passed on to future treasurers?
Yes, to all of it. So you have to maintain financial records for up to 7 years, however you're maintaining them. So as long as it, you know, it has a 7-year shelf life, as long as you have that, you're good to go. I myself switched to electronic records. This year, I only had electronic. As long as there is access to it by anybody who wants to see it, because don't forget, your books are kind of open, right? Like if a member says, hey, I want to see a bank statement, they get to see it. So as long as you have it in a way that is shareable and that the rest of the board has access to it, you can keep electronic files. Just make sure that you have files 7 years back and that you keep them. And then please make sure, this is another just kind of little pet peeve of mine, please make sure when you are doing anything with financial records and it has personal identifying information or your EIN, please make sure that gets shredded. You don't want that out anywhere, just floating around the landfill.
So the next question was, how long do we need to keep financial records from previous years? I think you've answered that, but 7 years. Okay. This is, let's see, when I started my new fiscal year tracker, I included the bank amount with the checks included since they weren't cashed yet. And then when they cleared, I just didn't assign them to a budget category and noted that they were from previous fiscal year. It helps me keep the numbers add up better. So that sounds like it was a comment to the outstanding checks. Oh, let's see. Sometimes it's comments. Okay, what is the deadline to file the 990?
So the 990, everybody should be on the same schedule now. It is November 15th. So that is the date.
But there's nothing to stop you from filing it now, because for most of us, our fiscal year is done.
Yeah, I have to tell you, I personally like it filed in July. And the reason is that, you know, I want to be able to close the door on a fiscal year as much as possible, which means when I start in August and like we're ready to go and we're ready to do stuff, everything from last fiscal year is done. So I would encourage you to do it as quickly as possible, especially given that most of us file postcards, right? And it's super easy. It's like 2 questions and you're done. So I like to file the taxes before I hand over the stuff to the financial review so that they know that the taxes have been filed. Personal preference, but it makes it much easier.
Robert left a comment letting us know that he can't find the 7/15 due date, but he has a link from Virginia PTA that says August 1st.
Yeah, so the 7/15 due date is like this little tiny teensy date that is right under the submit button when you upload it into the compliance document. Like if you're not really paying attention, you miss it. I think the only reason most of us saw it because it was like, oh my God, 7/15, that's not a real thing. So
Yeah.
I think that was what the reaction was.
Yeah, it sounds
Yeah,
like we, go ahead.
Sorry, my only other comment is it's not on the form either.
Mhm,
So, okay.
mhm.
I think that's why, you know, shock and surprise was where most of us went
Yeah.
when we saw it.
For the 990, I keep hearing October. The date is 15 July. No, the 990, I think Jamie just spoke to that, is November, right?
Right. It's the financial review form that is supposed to be uploaded by 7/15.
And treasurers are nothing if not detail oriented is a comment. All right, so we are all caught up in the chat. Nick, did you remember your question?
I did. So in past years, and it's been a bit of a mix, sometimes we had a financial committee. Sometimes when I started on that committee before I was treasurer, I was told we had to switch books with a different school's PTA. But it sounds like based on, and I was told that was a requirement. And it sounds like this year that's not a requirement. And maybe it never was, but that's okay.
It's an easy way for PTAs to get their financial review done without having a whole lot of volunteers, you know, participate. And I will tell you, pre-COVID, Fairfax County hosted like an in-person swap where like a bunch of PTAs got together, everybody swapped, but that was more a matter of convenience, and it was certainly not, and it's not now a requirement.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah.
Hartmus, your hand is still up. Did you have another question?
No, sorry, I just didn't lower it.
It's okay. Kimberly.
Yeah, sorry, I do have another question. So signatures on bank accounts. Do you recommend that anybody who is allowed to sign a check be on the executive board? Or could we ask a general member that is very involved to be a signature on the checks as well?
It should be an elected member of your board and a limited number.
Okay.
So here's my recommendation. The reason that it has to be an elected member is because that is who your insurance is covering if there is a financial problem, right? The reason that you should limit it is because you don't want everybody doing everything. You need somebody to be that checks and balances, right? So generally speaking, you should have your treasurer and your president and one additional signer, because if the president or the treasurer ever needs a reimbursement, they can't sign for themselves. So usually 3 is good.
Okay.
And
we
then
only have it. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
and then you're going to want to appoint somebody. Usually most PTAs have the secretary to be the reconciler. So every month they get the bank account, every month they get the treasurer's report, they match it up, they sign off, and they give it back to the treasurer, and that becomes part of your record.
Okay. Yeah, right now we only have a 3-board exec committee, which is why I was asking this question, because that would mean that the secretary, the president, and the treasurer would all be signatures on the bank account.
So here's what we did. so my local PTA only had 3 members last year. We had the treasurer, the president, the secretary. So what we did is we forewent a secondary on the bank. It was only the treasurer. And the only time she could touch the account was if there was a request from somebody and that we kind of signed off on it. And we made sure that she was sending bank checks so it wouldn't require a second signature. So what she has in her treasurer binder is a check request from me, the invoice of whatever it was that was being paid, and then she would send a bank check, because right now, you know, just since COVID, a lot of people started sending checks directly from the bank. And so what we did was, you know, so right now, if your bank signs the check, then that's the only one who's needed. So then what you could save is the request, the invoice, and then most banks will give you like a printout that says this check has been sent, here's your confirmation number. You staple it all together and that's your bank stuff. And you can kind of say during your financial review, the reason we chose to do that is because we didn't have enough members on the board to be able to kind of do all the things and have all the checks and balances. So we forewent additional people on the bank account so that we would be able to have people checking on that bank account who are not signers.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Sure.
Jamie, can you speak a little bit more about the monthly reconciliation and signing off on it monthly?
Absolutely. So it is a requirement that someone who is not a signatory on your bank account reconcile your account every month. So a lot of people do it differently. It really just depends on kind of what you use. So basically what I do is I do the printout. MoneyMinder, if you're using MoneyMinder, they have a reconciliation space and you'll send a login to whoever it is. You'll email them the bank account and they'll go in and they'll check it. If you're not using a system and you're just using Excel, totally fine. What you'll do is you'll send them the treasurer report. The treasurer report will include anything that was a credit to the account or a debit from the account for that 30 days. You'll send that in whatever format you have it, Excel, PowerPoint, Word, however you keep it for your PTA, and the bank account statement for that month. You'll send it to the requisitioner. They're going to check them against each other and make sure the math works. Here's my starting for the month, here's my ending for the month, and here are the transactions. And they're going to take that report and check it against the bank statement for the month. And if everything checks out, they're going to say check, you know, check mark, initial it. It could be very simple, however you choose to do it as a PTA, but it has to be done every month.
And that is an insurance requirement.
Yes.
So if something were to happen, if there was any kind of fraud or embezzlement or anything, when you go to make the claim, the insurance will check to make sure that this reconciliation is occurring. Go ahead, Scott.
So quick question about that. We use QuickBooks and every month we do the reconciliation there. We did not have a financial secretary till almost February. So I was the one who was doing the reconciliation, saving it, making sure it matched up. QuickBooks was doing it for me, and saving that information to a Google Drive folder. Is that okay, or does it have to be somebody else?
So I would absolutely 100% be lying to you if I said that there were not times that treasurers had to do that, right? It should be limited in scope and limited in time, right? So if you say, look, for May, I had to do the reconciliation. We were without any other board members. You know, it's fine. Just explain it on the sheet, but it has to be extremely limited because, as Kara said, it's actually an insurance requirement. So it is a PTA requirement, obviously, but because it's an insurance requirement. And so, you know, you really want to make sure as soon as you have enough people on board that you have somebody to reconcile those accounts, that they're doing it.
Okay. Thank you.
If it didn't happen last year, that just gets annotated. You know, hey, we didn't know this was a requirement. So the recommendation of the committee is to make sure this happens this year.
Exactly.
I'm going to do one quick, easy question from the chat. Then I'll go back to the hands. How soon do we need to get insurance updated?
So you cannot be a PTA without insurance. So as soon as your insurance is lapsing, generally speaking, within 30 days, the insurance company will send you something letting you know, hey, your policy is about to run out. You have to make a payment. That's when you do it. You've got to do it as soon as that bill comes, because you don't want to be a PTA with lapsed insurance. And not just because it's a bad look, because it is, but like if you're holding any kind of events in that kind of time frame, you're going to be really left without kind of any net at all. And so you want to make sure as soon as, put that on your treasurer's tasker list. Our insurance is due on May 25th. That's when it it gets paid by May 1st. That's what the board wants.
Okay, George.
Hi, excuse me. For the monthly reports, I always did it from the period of the meeting, the general meeting to the next general meeting, because it didn't make sense. Like our general meetings, would be like a week or two into the month, and there was be a lot of transactions in that period, and it seemed kind of, you shouldn't be reporting stale information to the general membership. I think that's going to make it harder to reconcile for people to reconcile, though. Should I be handing off to the next treasurer? Should I tell them just do it, count by the calendar month? And
so here's the thing, you can kind of do it both ways, right? When you're going to reconcile, it's month to month, right? And it does make it easier because you're balancing that against whatever your statement says. If what you're saying is like, there's a 2-week gap between the end of the month and our meeting, you may say these are the transactions for this time period, right? And present it to them like that. It's really up to you how you do those reports, but it makes it much easier on everybody at the end of the year, the people who are checking your books, as well as the, reconcilers, if it is on a 30-day or 31-day, depending on the month period.
Okay.
And the reason that is because what they're going to go back and see is your treasurer reports matching. And if they see that they're not, that's going to be you're going to have to explain a lot to them about like how you did it and why you did it. Whereas if you just do it by the month, it's super simple.
Right. And I never really had a formal reconciliation process. I would put all the reports and everything into the Google Drive and tell everybody else, the non-signers on the executive board, it's there. But I never really had like a check process, so I'll definitely change that. So
Yep.
I guess there's some sort of tracker.
Yep.
Thanks.
No worries.
Thanks, George. Jenny.
Hi, just a quick question, something that you had mentioned earlier. So in my notes, I have we do the financial review at the committee, and then we present it to our executive board, and then we upload the form to Member Hub, and then we present to the general membership, and then we upload again. Is that correct? And then what exactly are we uploading? Is there something that we need to like fill out again when we do these presentations to the general membership and to the executive board, or would that be pretty obvious, I guess, once I look at the paperwork? I'm a new treasurer this year.
So what they're looking at is, did you do the financial review? Did your board approve it? That's the signature piece, right? And then they're looking at like, when did you present it to your board? Now, there used to be an actual question, and now that it's been brought up, I don't think that it's there. So it says here, as the incoming treasurer and president, we accept this financial review, and we will submit a copy of this completed review to Virginia PTA as directed on the instructions page, which means that's your upload. And then it says, we will present it to our PTA membership at the first meeting of the year. It does not ask you to upload it again. It used to be that you could only upload it after you presented it to your general membership, because you had to date it. The signatures had to be dated after you presented it. Here, they're not asking for that. So it seems to me that as soon as the executive board approves it and the current sitting president and treasurer accept it, they sign off and you upload it. And then they're basically taking responsibility for presenting it to the membership. Because here's the thing, when you go to fill out your financial review next year, they're going to take a look and see if in those minutes you did that. So that's kind of the check on that, but I'm not seeing here where you would have to upload it twice.
So this is, Jamie, probably something we need to follow up with Virginia PTA. So every month, for our new PTA leaders on the call, you should be receiving a newsletter from SCC PTA. It probably will come from Jenna White, the VP of Communications. And as we learn things from Virginia and National PTA, we will share them frequently in that newsletter. So just make sure that you are opening emails from us because we have good information for you. Okay, Jamie, instead of writing or signing traditional checks, are there any restrictions to using bill pay or other digital method payments to do reimbursements?
No, but so Fairfax County PTA actually ran into this year, right? Like we had no standing rules on bank checks. So what we wound up doing is I would say, hey, the other signers on the account, I have an invoice that is due on X for X amount. I'd like to pay this directly from the bank account. Are you in concurrence? And they would say yes. And I would send it from the bank account and I would print out that email and I would attach the actual kind of invoice as well as the printout of like, yeah, the bank is sending the check on Friday. So I would say as long as there is some type of more than just the treasurer approving to have that check sent via the bank, it'll be fine. And then, you know, as like kind of treasurer paperwork, the invoice, the concurrence from somebody else. So like, it's almost like that second signature, but not a physical signature should be enough. And then of course, to make sure that's documented in your standing rules.
Confirming for the monthly reconciliation, the requisitioner has to be on the board.
They should be, yes, for fiduciary responsibility reasons, yes.
Okay. So Anna, you might have to clarify this question. It says, so existing treasurers are accepting their own reviews.
Yeah, I can chime in on that. I was curious about this actually, because so I am a first year treasurer. So I just did the financial review closing out our year and I am the continuing treasurer. So when we're signing the form, the way it's phrased, it basically says like, hey, self 5, I did a great job. So I'm assuming that that's what it is, but I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss a nuance there.
No, yeah, you're right. So basically what it says is if you are a continuing treasurer, you're not sitting on the committee. So the committee said, hey, you really screwed this up. I'm not sure what you were thinking here. And you have to be like, okay, I did some things wrong. I'm going to sign this form and I'm going to make all these fixes. If you're a new treasurer, basically you're saying, hey, I see what happened last year. I see what the deficiencies are. I'm going to sign off. I got it. We'll fix it. Or, hey, they did great and I'm going to continue to do great. Go ahead us, you know, like whatever it's going to be. But it is the sitting treasurer who kind of swallows that pill. Yes.
We are all caught up on questions. Okay, I know there's training for treasurer. Is there training for the financial secretary as well?
No, because I don't know many PTAs who have that or what that job is. So if you wanted to share with us what that was, maybe we could kind of be helpful, but I have not heard of a lot of PTAs who have this position.
Yeah, I do know that regular secretary training, we're trying to line that up right now. We're working on it. Something I wanted to ask that my first year as a treasurer for Fairfax County Council, we had like monthly check-ins with the treasurer where like once a month, all of the treasurers were able to log into a call and like ask any questions. Is that something that you guys are interested in? Go ahead and think about that. I'll answer it. I'll send out a poll question in the, Kimberly says yes, yes, yes. Okay. All right. So yes, on the monthly call, we will work. I'm getting a ton of yeses. Okay. We'll work on that. We are going to send out this information. I will work on sending out everything tomorrow. And any future questions, so make sure you reach out directly to Jamie. She's an amazing resource here at the county. All right, everyone. Thank you and good night.
Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jamie, I can't figure out how to stop recording.
Can you add Jamie's email address when you send stuff out?
Yes.
Thank you.